Hello and welcome to Judy's Creations in Crochet. This is my third attempt to get this going. Today is June the 6th, 2024, and I'm coming to you from southwestern Ontario, almost the southernmost tip of Canada. And we are getting some very hot, humid weather today. The weather's just done an about face on us because last week it was cold and chilly. But anyway, I was able to actually get out in the garden this morning and get a little work done there. So, first I want to tell you, for those that are new, what I'm all about. I like to talk about finished objects and things that I'm working on in crochet. And my other focus has generally been yarn, hand-dyed yarn. I do use yarn that most of you would get in the big department stores, and Hirschner's and Mary Maxim and the others. We of course can't get Joann's or Hobby Lobby, but I do use that yarn. You will see me occasionally use that. But my focus here on this channel, because so many people do yarn hauls from those other big stores, my focus is hand-dyed yarn, and particularly now it is Canadian hand-dyed yarn because the exchange rate has gotten extremely high. I think it's around 43% right now. So I have not been buying other than EFA, and this is all EFA back here, and that means Expression Fiber Arts. Other than their yarn, I have not been buying from the US at all lately. I've been focusing on Canada, and I've actually tried to pull back because this year, I said, is my year to shop my stash, and more about that in just a couple of minutes. So I like to talk about yarn as well as what I'm working on and what I've completed, and I talk about yarn and designers, anything to do with yarn and crochet. But if you're a knitter, there's lots of interesting information here for you as well. So at the beginning of the month, we always start with a welcome to the month from Kiki. And here's Kiki in her June outfit. And as I pulled it out, I'm thinking, by the way, it's got sparkles in it. I'm not sure if they're coming across. I used some hand-dyed yarns to make most of her dresses. Sparkle is just not coming. Oh, maybe a wee bit. Anyway, as I was pulling it out and getting it on her, I'm thinking, I think this little skirt needs just a little bit of trim. So I'm going to try to remember to get out, I think, my white latte and just put a nice round of some fuzzy latte on the bottom of it. So there she is for this month. Before I get into some of the business of this week, I have a couple of things I just want to catch up that I've sort of forgotten in the last week or so. One thing I forgot was in my last 2 weeks, I told you all about our adventures at Knit City. And it seems you enjoyed seeing Knit City and the different vendors and the yarn that I bought. But I did not tell you what Bonnie bought. Now, Bonnie didn't go with the intention of getting anything, but at one booth she saw, I think it's a shawl. It might have been an asymmetrical, but I think it's just a plain shaped shawl. And here's a picture of it. She liked it so well, she bought the pattern. And the sample was there, and it was beautiful, and it used different yarns. And a little later, she says, I think I'm going to go back and I'm going to get some yarn to go with this pattern. So I took a picture of the yarn that she bought to use in this pattern. And it does have some, I'm going to guess it's either mohair or Surrey alpaca is the fuzzy one. along with the other two. And she bought something very neutral, not the colors of the pattern, so that it would go with anything. It's a knitted pattern, and she's a little concerned about doing it. So I have a feeling she may end up using the yarn for something else, but she said she's going to practice the pattern and see how that goes. So I'm so sorry I forgot to mention that in last week's, and I wanted to catch that up first thing this week. The other very quick thing I wanted to show you, because I thought this was a little bit cool. I saw this picture on Facebook. I'm going to put it up here. And this is a picture somebody took, a screenshot, I'm guessing, from The Price is Right. And notice the contestant is wearing a crocheted sweater, I believe. So, you know, crochet is out there. And if you follow the trends in clothing and the fashion weeks on the runway, you will see crochet. Knitted too, but I seem to have seen more crochet. So I just thought I would show you that. I thought it was interesting. So I don't have anything. I'm not wearing any. Let's say that again. I am wearing something. I'm not wearing any crocheted item today. So can't tell you anything about that. My head is not quite on where it should be these days. Anyway, where I want to start today is Stash Down. Remember, I said I was going to join in on the Stash Down for 2024. I particularly want to join in on it because at the beginning of the year, one of my goals was to shop my stash. Now, Diane made a very good point when I was talking or watching her once. You know, she didn't like to call it stash. Sounds kind of like we're hoarding, doesn't it? And I don't like to think I'm hoarding. But I like her word for it. Collection. This is my collection. And, you know, people do collect things. And I think one of my hobbies is crochet. But another hobby is collecting yarn. So anyway, I said I wanted to shop my collection. And there is a group on group in YouTube creators that are doing something called a Stash Down 2024. So I thought I need to get in this. It'll keep me focusing on using what I already have. And every month, at the beginning of the month, I show you what I'd made from the previous month that used items I already had. So one of them I have right here. You saw this last week. And this is my shawl for the donation box made from ice cream that I've had a year or two, I'm sure. And that that's my first one. And then I also have a shawl I made. I'll have to put a picture up here. And it used the purple Stanley cake and some mohair. And I used the yarn from my Make 9 box, so I was happy about that. The next thing I want to mention is a cowl I made. I showed you that maybe 2 weeks ago. It's made with a zebra yarn, and again, that came from my Make 9 box. And the next one, this is the third one. In 1 month, I did 3 things out of my Make 9. And that is the yarn, the fireweed yarn. And I believe the name of the, I started out to make the embers, but in the end, I think, yes, I stopped following a pattern and I made my own thing. And again, here is a picture of that item. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 items using items from my stash. And one last item, and a little story here, but my item for this past month's Mal was half and half. The yellow I already had. Somebody gave it to me last fall. And the black was something I bought at Knit City. So it was half and half. But I'm going to show it to you. But I want to tell you, I ended up seeing the box of donations. Remember, I told you I had a little stuffy and I was donating it, and I wish I had it instead. So I took the skirt off of the toucan and put on the blue one that he already had. And there was the penguin, and I found the penguin in a box ready to go out. And it has, see, he has a little bit of yellow there on his chest. He's got some gray, black. He's got a goldy, orange would have been good. But anyway, the skirt has gone on him instead. His name is Pongo. And so this will go with my other loveys. I'm glad I still had this one to put it on him, because I like it on him better than I liked it on the toucan. So that covers the items that used all yarn from my collection. I hope you don't mind my borrowing that term, Diane. So that is the first item of business today. Now, the next thing is, I do not have an actual finished object from this week. I'll move her out. But I do have 2 finished objects to show you. I'm in the middle of making something. I've kind of been, I haven't been really focused on my crochet. See, I'm even having trouble finding the words. And people ask me if I was all right. Yes, I'm all right, okay? I have a very, very good friend who had a stroke last week, and it's a serious stroke. She cannot speak, and her right side is immobile at the moment, and she's in the hospital, and a lot of my time has been devoted to that. And you can imagine it has me kind of a little upset and very, very busy. So I don't really want to get into it, but I just wanted to reassure you, it's not me. So the reason I have 2 finished objects is because last fall I participated as a tester for 2 different people, and the one never notified me, and I'm going to guess that the item is out there in the public now. And the other one, I discovered she released the pattern in April, and so I'm free to show this now. So I'm going to start with the first one. I may have even shown you part of this last fall, but this one is called Ocean Crest. I'm pretty sure if it's been released, you would find it on Ravelry. And I used yarn from Smash Knits. These were 2 yarns that I had from a long while back. One of them is quite old. You can see she hand wrote it, and then here's her newest. This one is superwash merino and nylon 75-25, and the other one is the same but 85-15. And one is called Sorcerer's Apprentice, and the other is called Atlas. It was her September Yarn Club. I don't know which one is which, but it's an asymmetrical triangle that gets bigger, and every so often it has this section of waves. So I used the blue for the waves, the green for the rest. That's why it's called Ocean Crest. And then it gets bigger, and again, just keep repeating plain and then the wave section. And it gets quite long. And if I recall correctly, I don't think I made it quite as long as it was supposed to be. So there it is. This can maybe be the item that I can wear, since I'm wearing nothing. And there is, I'm going to post this in Instagram, and if I don't have a picture of it, I'll take a picture of it on one of my mannequins. But actually, I really quite like these colors. Very, very pretty. So that is a tester item I did last October, and I don't recall the designer's name. I was in a website, I guess, or an app where they have all designers who put out calls for testers. And after I did a couple there, I closed it out. I wasn't really happy with how the whole system was working. But anyway, a very, very nice asymmetrical triangle. The second finished object I have to show you is called, I think it's Enchanted Vines. Is that the name of it? Of course, I can't find my notes, but I'm pretty sure it's called Enchanted Vines. And this is a pattern, yes, Enchanted Vines. This is the pattern I tested for Karen Hooley. I think I've tested a couple of others for her in the past as well. And she released the pattern in April. It is on her website. You can find it on Ravelry, but you can't purchase her, at least not this pattern on Ravelry. You have to go to her site. And I just had the tag for the yarn in front of me, and now it's gone. And you can still get in on a KAL that Karen Hooley is doing. It started June the 3rd, which was just on Monday. By purchasing the pattern, you can get involved in her KAL. She has a hashtag on Instagram where you can post your progress, and you have until the end of June to finish it, and there are some prizes involved. So if you're interested, I would go over there and join in. So here it is. It's a wrap. It starts at one end and goes to the middle. It gets wider. So it starts at this end, and you see it's plain. The plain part gets wider, and there's the lace edge, and you're doing it back and forth, up and down here, the way I'm holding it. And the fringe or lace is done with each row as you proceed. And you can see the, I don't know what those are, bunches of grapes or whatever at the end. But anyway, it starts narrow and it gets wider until you get to the middle, quite deep. And then, of course, it gets narrower again to the same on the other side. Now, I know I have a couple of pictures of this. I'll share the screen with them on the mannequin. I may have one holding it up. And the beauty of this, whenever you buy a Karen Hooley pattern, and you know, if you look back, oh, it's a while now. I think it was September of my first year. I did a focus on Karen Hooley as a designer. And with all of her patterns, you get a chart. I love the charts. So if you're wanting to try out charts, this is a great opportunity. This is it. It's called Enchanted Vines. I will link it in the description box below. If this is in Ravelry, I'll link it as well. And the yarn I used was Oasis Fingering from Expression Fiber Arts, and it's called Faded Rose. Now this took, I thought I had the ball of what was left over. Oh, this is it right here. This is, Oasis Fingering has 500 yards in it, and I used two skeins, and there are, I think this is right, 80 some grams left. So a fair bit left in the second ball, but I did have to use some of it. Now, most would be using, most hand-dyed yarns have 400 to about 430 yards in it. So you would definitely need about 1.5, depending again on your hook size. I don't have that written down, but I think I used a 3.5 millimeter because Oasis Fingering is a little bit finer than a lot of other fingering. So I have that much left over. I'm going to rewind it in a smaller, tighter ball, and then I'll have it for something else. I could have used it on what I'm making right now. So that's my 2 finished objects, 2 tester things that I have done, and I did them both last October. So I'm glad that I can finally show these. I had them hidden away in a box so that I wouldn't forget. So, my finished objects. Next week, I will definitely have one finished object. What I'm working on right now, I'm thinking another maybe 2 days. If I can focus a bit, I should have it done. And then I'm going to work on my June item for the mal, which you won't see for a couple of weeks. So that is finished items. So next thing I want to talk about, you recall that last summer we did a cowl together. We did the Just Feel festive wrap. We did it in August, I think, maybe late July into August. And at the time you said you enjoyed having the cowls, and I said I would try to do something we all work on together, same item, not like my monthly thing. You all do your own thing in my monthly mal, but this was something we would all work on together, and I said I would do it twice a year. And the second one I did last year, actually happened in January, was the item we did in collaboration with Gina at the Knitting Turnpike. So you all made either a knitted or a crocheted version of the, well, it was the Riverdi wrap in crochet. I can't remember what the name of the knitted one was. So I'm thinking it's time to be looking at a summer cowl. Definitely this is a cowl. It is crochet, and you'll see why in a minute. And maybe if you're a knitter, this might be a way for you to learn to crochet. I don't know, but I want to tell you my idea, and I want your feedback. I want comments under today's video to let me know if you would like to do this. And only if I get a good number responding that they want to do it, that I will do it. If not, if this doesn't appeal to you, then maybe you can suggest the kind of thing you would like to do. So anyway, this was my thought. I was thinking I would like to try to do a few more tutorials. And my thinking was there are so many different stitches out there. And I'm talking stitches, not stitch patterns. That's another thing we won't discuss today. But there are a lot of stitches out there, and some of you know some stitches, others know other stitches. And I thought what I would like to do is find 6 stitches, maybe that are a little bit different, that you don't hear about. Not, you know, like we've all heard of the moss stitch. We all know what a post stitch is, that kind of thing, or a puff stitch. I thought I would go looking for 6 stitches that you don't hear about very often. Now, some of you may already know the stitches that I pick. I mean, I got them. I have a book with stitches, but I also went looking on the internet. And I thought I would do a stitch tutorial 6 weeks in a row with 6 different stitches. I won't go into the specifics of the whole thing unless you really want to do it. And if so, that'll be next week's conversation. But my thinking was I'll do a tutorial on 6 different stitches that have a bit of texture to them generally. Maybe one won't, but some texture to it. And then we would make something with those 6 stitches. And I'll go more specifics later. But what I wanted to do was give you some ideas of what could be done with it. And I got this idea from looking through the minis that I have grouped on my in my favorites in Ravelry. So one thing you can do when you have a variety of stitches, and this is the most common, is you could do different squares for a scarf. I'm going to put pictures up here of ideas. The scarf can be done all one color. The scarf doesn't need a border, or it could have a border on it. The scarf could be in multi colors, like various colors. Maybe you got a bunch of minis you want to use up, and you could do different patterns in each color. Or you make it a little wider than a scarf, and you could do a wrap, and you could use various stitches and make a wrap. Now, the pictures I'm showing you may use more than 6 stitches. I'm just trying to give you ideas of things that you could make if you had, you know, a library of so many stitches. So there's a wrap. Another very common thing would be a blanket. Now, here's a blanket that's wider than a scarf or wrap. It's still wide rows. But of course, you could make the blanket with squares, whatever size, not granny squares, using the stitches you've learned. So you'd make, you know, maybe a 6 by 6 square or a 10 by 10 square with the stitches and put them together in a blanket. Here's one that has 2 rows side by side. Depending on how big they are, could be a wrap, could be, that looks like a table runner, but it could be big enough for a blanket. Now, those are very common ideas of what you can make. Here are a couple of different ones. Here, the first one I want to show you, I really like this. Here is a poncho. The poncho is made with large squares of different stitches, and then they're joined together in a poncho shape, and in this case they've put a big neck on it. You don't have to put a neck on it. Another idea is sort of like a poncho. If you look at this, it's sideways. They do have ponchos that go sideways. They're square in the front, and this particular one you see the mannequin wearing, I'm going to show it to you laying out flat. And you can see the different squares, and then it has a seam here and here with an opening in the middle so that it could be worn the way I showed you, or it could be worn with your typical poncho neckline, but it does not come to a point. It's elongated. Actually, you could leave it open completely on the front of this, and it would be like a ruana. So that's another idea. You could make a ruana with all your squares. You could make a cocoon cardigan. You make your big rectangle with all your squares. You could do 6 very big squares, seam it together. You could make, you know, a lot of people make sweaters and cardigans with granny squares. You could use squares like this. But here's another idea of sweaters using the different stitches, and it is not squares put together. You can see the body of this sweater has different, I'm thinking it has fewer, I see repeats. It maybe has 3 different stitches used there. There's, and here is another sweater. I really like this sweater. And again, different rows of different stitches put together, and the sleeve has different stitches. And then finally here are a couple of blankets that I didn't show you earlier. Again, rows of stitches rather than squares of different stitches. But my thinking was that I would have a few rules. You wouldn't have to use all 6 stitches, but I thought I could do 6 weeks in a row tutorial of the stitches, and then I would give you X amount of time to make whatever it is you want to make with those stitches. And it could be all one color. It could be multiple colors, as you've seen in some of these. It could be any weight of yarn you want. For those that don't crochet, maybe my tutorials would help you. You'd need to know how to chain before watching my tutorials. I won't be teaching chain, and I won't be teaching single and double crochets. but you might be able to learn these 6 stitches and decide to make some squares and then, or rows, and then make something out of it. And then we would have, you know, a certain amount of time to give you time to finish your items, send in the pictures. I'll do a slideshow. I love doing the slideshows to show you everybody else's work. And yeah, maybe there just might be a prize associated with it as well. So that is my idea for our summer Cal. And I would like to know if this idea interests you at all. If so, if you'd like to try it, you know, some of you make blankets for donations. Others, you know, you make scarves and hats for donations. This would be a good way to use up any yarn you have to make something a little bit different. I'm kind of enticed, well, maybe interested in the sweater idea. I don't know. I haven't decided. I want to see if this is something you're interested in doing first. So please let me know. Let me know on this video, because I'm going to make a decision. And if we go ahead with it next week, I'll be telling you all the parameters of what's going to happen in July and August. So that's my idea moving forward. Now I got to pull up here to get a hold of it. I have some happy mail that I'm going to finish off with. You all have heard me mention Cindy, who lives in Costa Rica, and we've become very friendly, and we've talked a number of times, and I have sent her wool through her family because you really can't send things to Costa Rica. The mail there is horrible, and I won't even get started on the horror stories that I've heard. Well, one day we were video chatting, and she was showing me some things she'd made. And she had made some items felting, using felted methods. And I've never felted. And she was showing me a number of things. And of course, I commented. She had some purple, and of course, I liked it. So she decided she wanted to give me one of her items, some of her items she'd made. And she was going to the UK to visit her son. Her son is in the UK working, and they were going for a visit. So she took with her all the way to the UK these items to send me. And then, of course, she had to put more in the package. So she used this yarn. It's a felting wool that she got in, I think I remember this right, she got in Denmark, especially for felting. At one point when her husband and her were traveling in the past, she bought this yarn, and she made, first of all, this coaster. And I might just start using that coaster down here for my drink. And second of all, she made this, I call it a doily, but it doesn't look like a doily. It could be a trivet, a hot pad. It's very, very thick. But of course, you can see why I like it. It's in my colors. The back, very different. But this is what she made. And I think I have a, believe it or not, I have a purple bathroom. And I'm thinking I have something that I sit on the counter. I have a very long, very wide vanity. And I have a big thing I maybe might set on this in my bathroom that's purple. Anyway, isn't that lovely what she sent me? But when she was there visiting her son, she decided she needed to get me a souvenir. And so along with this came these other items. Well, I have to tell you that I think Cindy has a sadistic streak in her. which one of you, are there people out there that like to do jigsaw puzzles? Well, my friend and I, of course she can't right now, but my friend and I do jigsaw puzzles. I think I showed you once, one on the table. Well, she saw this and thought of me. Wall of wool. Who would like to do this puzzle? My girlfriend said when she saw it, if she wants to see this put together, she needs to come here and help us. That is definitely a puzzle for a very future date. But along with it, that one I'm going to keep as a surprise for somebody. They sent me this nice card. It turns out that there was this embroidery society shop that was over 200 years old and still in existence. And I guess it's in this building. But anyway, she saw that puzzle and knew it was meant for me. I'm not so sure about that, Cindy. And then she saw some other things, but she was in this very special, buildings, the gardens and buildings of this palace, and they had the Embroidery Society shop in there. And she bought these. I think they're adorable. I don't have the hair. These are hair clips to put them on, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use them the way I use these hair clips, and I'm going to put it on the edge of some of my balls of yarn. Isn't that adorable? Now, this is me. This is definitely a me kind of thing. I shouldn't have done that. Pulled it apart. The other thing I think is there's no reason why. Now, this isn't a shawl, so I'm not trying to keep it from falling apart. But there's no reason you couldn't take 2 pieces of a shawl and put it together and use that. It clips on there. Now, I haven't joined it to the other side because this is a scarf. But I think it could go as like a shawl pin as well. I think they're adorable. I really like those. So I'm going to put that back on there. And they will get used at some point. And she got me also this. Now, this is something you make. It's wooden. There are all the pieces. And I take the pieces apart. I'm going to be careful not to do that right away. And I have the instructions to put those pieces together so that I can make that cat. Isn't that neat? So I am going to make it one day in the not too distant future. I think while I'm dealing with this other situation in my life that I will just put this aside for the moment, back in its container. And when my head is a little clearer, I'm going to make that. I really like it. Now, my shelves up there are getting pretty crowded. I don't know if I'll be able to put it up there or not, but I'm going to try and find a way. I think at some point I need to move that yarn out of there. But anyway, I want to make this at some point, maybe this summer. Now, there was one other item, but I'm not going to show it because I don't want everybody to see it. I want it to be a surprise for somebody that I give it to. But it is lovely as well. Everything you sent me was lovely and very thoughtful, Cindy. And I thank you very much. I do appreciate that you were all the way on the other side of the world and thinking of me to send me some special items. So I think that's all we have for today. A little shorter than usual, but that's okay. You've listened to me drone on for the last 2 weeks about my experience in Toronto, so you get a little bit of relief this week. Next week, I have my monthly subscription from Sweet Georgia Yarns. It has arrived just today, but I'm going to hold off till next week. And I have ordered my monthly subscription from Color of My Fiber that I've been doing every month. And she's close enough that I'm pretty sure it will be here in time, unless she has to diet yet. It may be here for next week as well. So we're definitely going to be looking at my yarn subscriptions for the month. I only have those 2 right now. And I will have, for sure, 1 finished object. I push myself to make sure I have that 1 finished object. Next week, they're going to start working in my yard. You know, for those that have followed me for a while, you know that I have a hosta collection, fairly sizable. And I replaced my shed last fall. I did show a picture of that. And I decided that in the back section behind the shed, I needed to put in a raised garden for some of my hostas because they weren't doing too well in that area in the ground. They were actually shrinking. And it's because of all the roots in the ground from the trees on both sides. So I decided if I got a raised garden and got those particular hostas into the raised garden that will have the protection on the bottom, they will fare much better because they're all supposed to be sizable. So it won't be done in time to show you next week, but I'll be in a mess with all the workers here next week. So maybe the week after, I'll be able to take you on a garden tour. So not a lot planned for next week, but I do want to know if you're interested in that CAL, and we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the CAL and the rules and everything for the CAL next week. So that's about all I have to show you this week. And I hope you'll be back again next week. And until then, happy hooking.